started when I met my boyfriend Nick.
Okay.
And we met on an online dating website.
Can you tell me this first? Did Gypsy know that you were going to kill her mother?
Honestly, she asked me to.
This is Reporter Room with Jessica Della Davies.
Welcome to part 2 of Munchausen Murder Monday. I'm Jessica Della Davies and I'm an investigative journalist. This story is a story about greed, grifting, betrayal, deceit, isolation, crime, murder, treachery, and lust. This is one of the worst cases of Munchausen syndrome by proxy and the cautionary tale of Gypsy Rose and Dee Dee Blanchard. This is one of the most bizarre cases I have ever covered in my entire life. There are so many plot twists. So let's talk about this crazy case, and feel free to debate your opinion in a classy way in the comment section below. Many Munchausen by proxy perpetrators work in the medical field, and Dee Dee Blanchard was no exception. Dee Dee Blanchard, the mother of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, worked as a medical assistant, and this gave her the medical terminology that allowed her to deceive physicians. And Dee Dee was no angel. She had a past, and a past that would raise red flags for most people. She had warrants out for writing bad checks in Louisiana. She had misdemeanors, and she had no contact with her family, despite the fact that she had 5 siblings. In fact, Dee Dee's family claimed that while Dee Dee was caring for her own mother prior to moving to Missouri, she was starving her own mother. She allegedly starved her own mom to death. In fact, Dee Dee's stepmom and real dad were not even sorry that she had passed. You see, they knew the real Dee Dee. They knew the cruel Dee Dee. They knew the evil Dee Dee. They had even suggested flushing Dee Dee's ashes down the toilet and refused to memorialize her with a headstone. And who can blame them, right? If I believed someone starved their own mom until she passed, I wouldn't want them memorialized either. What do you think? But this case gets even more bizarre, so stay with me. And everything I'm sharing with you today is my opinion, so please don't send any negativity to anyone, anytime, anywhere. Let's be kind and good to each other. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a video. So Dee Dee had been making her daughter pass herself off as younger and pretend to be disabled and chronically ill, subjecting Gypsy Rose to unnecessary surgeries and medication, including a feeding tube. Dee Dee manipulated Gypsy Rose, and this is considered to be a form of medical, and I'm going to just use the A word there because I'm watching my words. Mark Feldman, an international expert on Munchausen's by proxy, also known as fastigious disorder, stated that this was the first case he had ever seen in which the victim did away with the parent. You see, in most of the cases, the children do not survive a Munchausen by proxy mother. I believe that Gypsy Rose survived because Dee Dee was using Gypsy to fundraise, to collect child support payments, and basically made her living off of what she was doing to Gypsy Rose. She was grifting her own child. And if you're wondering why Gypsy didn't report Dee Dee to the authorities, it's probably because Gypsy Rose was isolated, and this was the only life that she knew. Gypsy did try to run away once with a man she met at a convention, but Dee Dee found her, brought her back, and Gypsy Rose says she was restrained in her bed for over a week. What Dee Dee was actually doing to her own daughter borderlined on being cultish. She had isolated Gypsy Rose. She controlled her by using medication that she could put right into Gypsy Rose's feeding tube. And if you look at the photos, you can see in any interview that Dee Dee did with Gypsy Rose that Dee Dee is holding Gypsy Rose's hand. It appeared loving, like a doting mother, but actually the hand-holding was a control mechanism. And if Gypsy Rose said anything Dee Dee didn't like, she would squeeze her hand and there would be dire consequences for Gypsy Rose afterward. Remember that also Dee Dee was telling Gypsy Rose, who was being homeschooled and kept away from everyone, that no one would ever believe her. And Gypsy Rose was very isolated. It seems like her only contact to the outside world was a guy she met on an online Christian dating site named Nick Godejohn, and one neighbor's daughter who believed Gypsy Rose was mentally slow, and because of what Dee Dee told her and told everyone that Gypsy Rose was mentally slow, the neighbor's daughter didn't believe Gypsy Rose when Gypsy Rose did try to tell her things, such as about her secret online boyfriend, Nick Godejohn. So we're going to talk more about Nick Godejohn in a moment, and it's really interesting, so please stay with me. This belief that no one would believe her was reinforced by the fact that Dee Dee took Gypsy Rose to doctors to have all the medical treatments and surgeries that the doctors just appeared to believe everything Dee Dee said. So to Gypsy Rose, it must have felt like there was no escape from Dee Dee. Gypsy Rose did know she could walk, but she believed she had cancer, muscular dystrophy, epilepsy, needed a feeding tube. And my question is, why didn't any of the physicians pick up on the fact that Dee Dee was lying? Couldn't they see that Gypsy Rose's leg muscles were not atrophied? Were they running any kind of lab work on her? What kind of ethics does a physician have who performs surgeries and prescribes medication without verifying that a child needs to have these done? It's really shocking when you think about it. So Gypsy Rose would have felt totally trapped in a system, in a cycle of medical, and I'm just going to use the word A. So doctors need to be aware of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, and Gypsy Rose fell through every crack in our system, and Dee Dee was tranquilizing her. What do you think about that? So let's talk about Gypsy and Nick. Gypsy Rose was isolated from everyone by her mother Dee Dee. She was homeschooled and was not allowed to socialize. She watched lots of Disney movies, and due to the fact that she was so isolated, I think she believed that Nick Godejohn was going to be the prince who swooped in to rescue her from her evil mother who was keeping her locked, just like Rapunzel, in a locked tower. By the way, if you haven't seen part 1 of this Munchausen Murder Monday series, you will want to watch this next, and I will link it for you in the description below. So Gypsy Rose met Nick on a Christian dating website. Gypsy Rose managed to secure a laptop, which she kept hidden from Dee Dee. Gypsy talked to Nick over the period of nearly 2 years about getting married, about having a snow wedding, and even about naming their kids after Nick. And Nick was on the autism spectrum and had a very low IQ, so many people would have wondered, would he have harmed Dee Dee without being put up to it by Gypsy Rose? Was he manipulated into this awful situation? And Nick had visited Gypsy Rose once, coming down from Wisconsin to see Gypsy Rose in Missouri at a movie theater when Gypsy Rose and Dee Dee were seeing the film Cinderella. But Dee Dee didn't want anything to do with Nick and kept Gypsy Rose away from him. But in June of 2015, Nick returned to Springfield at the urging of Gypsy Rose, and after arriving, while Gypsy Rose and her mother were away at a doctor's appointment, he went to Gypsy Rose's house and hid outside the house. After Dee Dee had gone to sleep, Gypsy Rose led him into the house, gave him duct tape, gloves, and a knife, with the understanding that he would use these things to do away with Gypsy Rose's mom, Dee Dee. Gypsy Rose and Nick both stated that Gypsy hid in the bathroom, covered her ears so she would not have to hear her mother calling for her, and Nick proceeded to stab Dee Dee 17 times in her back while she was asleep. Afterwards, the two had relations in Gypsy Rose's bedroom and took $4,000 in cash that Dee Dee had been keeping in the house, mostly from Gypsy Rose's father's child support checks. They fled to a motel outside of Springfield, where they stayed for a couple of days while planning to take a bus back to Wisconsin, where Nick lived with his mom and dad. While at the motel, Gypsy Rose was caught on multiple security cameras gathered by law enforcement, and law enforcement thought they were looking for a possible kidnap victim. They didn't realize that Gypsy Rose was involved, but there she was, seen at several local stores, and she was walking, not in a wheelchair like everyone thought. During this time, Gypsy Rose and Nick Godejohn actually mailed the knife that Nick used back to his parents' house, and this was such a strange choice. But again, it speaks to how naive Gypsy Rose was and the low IQ of Nick Godejohn, in my opinion. So law enforcement was able to track the couple from a bizarre Facebook post that Gypsy Rose made from Nick Godejohn's parents' home in Wisconsin. And Nick's parents had no idea what the two had just done. They thought Gypsy Rose was coming from a homeless shelter after her mom kicked her out. There, at Nick Godejohn's parents' house, both Gypsy Rose and Nick Godejohn were arrested and taken into custody by law enforcement. I think we'll leave it there today, but next week on Munchausen Murder Monday, I'm going to share with you important information about the interrogation of Gypsy Rose and Nick Godejohn, the trial, and the sentencing, because I'm not sure that Gypsy Rose and Nick Godejohn got sentenced correctly. Please subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a video, and join me on Wednesday for a live stream with Ziggy. Thanks for watching.